One of the most popular episodes on this channel is the one on Marilyn Monroe, where we explore the art of reinventing yourself if you aren't happy with who you are or you're simply just trying to work towards a higher version of yourself. That video seems to have struck a nerve for a lot of people, and so I think it creates this opportunity, and I think it could be quite helpful to dive deeper into this topic a little bit more. Welcome back to the It Girl Playbook. Today we will be exploring the art of rebranding, exploring a few different types of real reinventions that go beyond just the surface level aesthetics so that you can find which one speaks to your situation and even take inspiration from some incredible examples that we'll get into to see what we can learn from them. I want to preface this by saying that this episode isn't intended to encourage you to hate yourself, and that is why you have to change and reinvent yourself. But what I am fully encouraging is growth, to challenge parts of you that feel stuck, insecure, so that you can feel more confident, you can trust yourself, and not just settle with who you are, but fall in love with who you are becoming. And so with that said, let's dive right into it, starting with our first rebrand, the Amplified Self with Lana Del Rey. Not all reinventions is about becoming someone new or changing who you are. Sometimes it simply means becoming more of who you already are. We live in a world that loves a good transformation or a dramatic glow up, which I totally get. These dramatic changes that kind of catch us by surprise and grabs our attention. But what if you already know who you are and what you're about? Sometimes what you need isn't a dramatic change. It's simply amplifying who you are and having the courage to do so, in trusting your taste, your vision, your very essence, even when others don't. And Lana Del Rey is a perfect example of this. When she first entered the mainstream, she wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms. People didn't really know what to do with her. Her SNL performance was picked apart, her melancholic, vintage aesthetics confused people, and she was criticized for being too slow, too strange, too sad. The internet was not kind at all, and she easily could have shifted her music, her singing, to ride the wave of what was trending at the time and what was acceptable and what was in. But instead, she doubled down on who she is, and what that created was this immersive world that people can't help but feel drawn into. This kind of reinvention may be for someone who's always known who they are but feel like the world hasn't validated them yet. You might feel misunderstood, overlooked, or even criticized. But if there's one thing Lana's story teaches us, it's that validation begins with self-trust. Once you fully commit to being who you are, and when you finally stop asking for permission or approval to be who you are, that's when the world starts paying attention. The next rebrand is the Authentic Switch Up with Addison Rae. Addison Rae's rebrand wasn't necessarily loud or dramatic. It was subtle, but it was just as impactful. She shifted from doing what got her liked to doing what she genuinely enjoyed, and it seems to have made all the difference in transitioning her from a rising new artist to possibly now the new pop princess of the next era. She recently did an interview where she mentioned something that really stuck with me. She said that there really wasn't a rebrand, I'm just being myself. She recounted her early days where she was still posting dancing and lip syncing videos on TikTok and was in a content house that she really wanted to get out of. And so she committed to posting dozens of TikToks in a single day to build up her audience as much as she can, even if that meant catering to the version that more people would like, rather than doing what she genuinely enjoyed just to get out. And I find that story to be so inspiring because there's a lot that we can learn from it. If you find yourself in a similar position where you feel like you can only make progress by catering to the version that people would accept or would like, Addison shows us that if you're intentional about it, you can't allow that to work in your favor. It's okay to strategically play the part and use it to build yourself up to be in a position where you can afford to do what it is that you genuinely enjoy or care about, as long as you don't forget who you really are in that process, because the goal isn't to stay in that box forever. The goal is to outgrow it, and Addison teaches us how we can use that as a stepping stone and not as a cage. The next rebrand is the Clean Slate with Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus has a unique story because her rebrand felt like it was a two-part series. We've seen many versions of Miley, from being the Disney darling with her beloved role as Hannah Montana to the total 360 with her rebellious bangers era, and now to a calmer, more mature, and more authentic Miley. Miley has mentioned that during her bangers era, where she was doing the most, she was rebelling mostly for rebellious sake. She felt like the identity from her Disney days followed her, and so she made it a goal to perform and to behave in a way that she knew Hannah wouldn't. And so I think this really encourages us to take the time to reflect and see if our rebrand is genuinely out of desire to work towards that higher version of yourself, or if it is just out of rebellion and out of rejection. If you are, that is fine, because Miley also shows us that we can still find our way back to ourselves, or to that version of us that we want to be, by realigning. She seems much happier now, more at peace, and even in a recent interview where people were heckling, saying that they were told that Miley would sing, she didn't lash out, and instead she started singing The Climb, which, if you know that it was the song from her Hannah Montana movie. And the way that she handled the situation, I thought, was very graceful, but zooming out, I think it also really shows growth. She's now embracing the very character that she used to so hard to deny. And so if you're in a season where you've burned it all down, you pushed everything away, but you're ready to build something more authentic, I think Miley's story is for you. There's definitely a lot more that you can learn from her, especially if your reinvention wasn't a linear journey. Possibly you as well have gone back and forth with a couple of different versions, and you're finally finding the one that aligns with you. Reinvention, in this sense, it doesn't mean that you've lost yourself. Sometimes it just means that you took the long way home. The next rebrand is the strategic repositioning with Kim Kardashian's recent law school rebrand. Kim Kardashian is someone that we all know is famous, and for a long time she was mocked for being quote-unquote famous for nothing. And even though she's built multiple businesses, including Skims, which is now worth billions, I feel like many people still dismissed her as just a reality star with a great marketing team. But if you've paid attention, you've possibly noticed something deeper. Kim has always been quietly consistent. She's not afraid to try, to fail, to pivot, and to build again. Those who know her personally always say that she's a hard worker, yet with all of her effort, the most credit she's often given is for being a marketing genius. Never fully respected for the empire that she's actually built. But now, with her recent graduation from law school, we're witnessing something very interesting. Not a full reinvention, changing her entire image, but a strategic repositioning. She's still Kim. She hasn't abandoned the glam, the fashion, or the business. She's just adding to her stack. She's expanding her identity, and in doing so, making it harder to be placed in a box. Possibly this is you, in the sense that it feels like no matter what you do or what you say, people still don't take you seriously. They say you're too young, you're too old, you're too naive, maybe you're too optimistic or too pessimistic, you're too this, you're too that. So what do? You stack up your wins, your credentials, your achievements, so that those who doubt you, they have no choice but to respect you, and maybe more importantly, you start respecting yourself too. If we take a look at Kim, she's not begging anyone to respect her. She's working hard and building her empire until we're kind of left with no other option but to admire what she has built and what she has achieved. You don't have to argue your worth. Sometimes you just gotta build it and let your results do the talking. The next rebrand we have is the quiet luxury rebrand with Sofia Richie. Possibly your rebrand isn't about getting more loud, but rather quieter, softer, more refined, and more intentional. It's not about adding more, but subtracting. Sofia Richie went from being seen as a tabloid socialite and model, often in the shadow of her relationships or her famous last name, to becoming a modern-day luxury muse. She traded the flashy, fast-paced fashion and energy for timeless silhouettes, an elevated simplicity, and a personal brand that just feels so much more refined. And what was incredible is that it really didn't feel like she was becoming a totally different person. It was more about becoming disciplined with what she showed, how she showed up, and what she aligned herself with. This type of reinvention probably speaks to those who are done with the noise, the chaos, the performance, and all the doing the most. Possibly you're ready to enter your soft era, the less is more type of glow up, choosing peace over emotional roller coasters. It's for those who no longer feel the need to prove themselves through quantity but quality. If this is the reinvention that speaks to you, but possibly you're afraid that without the noise and without the performance that you'll have less of an impact, then we can see from Sofia Richie's example that this is far from the truth. It feels like her influence has only grown since she has become more refined, softer, more intentional, and more aligned. And I think this holds so much value because it comes to show that soft doesn't mean weak, gentle doesn't mean passive. A quiet life and more intentional presence can be just as impactful, if not more. Sofia reminds us that you can still shine without the noise, and you can definitely still stand out without trying too hard. And last but not least, we have the ultimate reinvention with Marilyn Monroe. It feels only fitting to leave this one for last, as she is the one that inspired this entire episode. If there's one woman who proves that reinvention can be in art form, it's Marilyn. Before the world knew her as Marilyn Monroe, she was Norma Jean. She was a shy and insecure girl that didn't come from a very glamorous background. She was bouncing between foster homes, experiencing neglect, and struggling to be seen. She craved safety and visibility, but she wasn't born into fame, and so she created it. She created Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood's ultimate bombshell. She crafted the way that she walked, the way she talked, how she laughed, posed, and of course, how she looked. Marilyn teaches us that your image, it can be a performance in a way that works for you and in a form of art that you can curate. And while that can sound very performative, it can also be so incredibly empowering, because what Marilyn teaches us is this: you can choose how the world sees you. You're not limited to the version of you that your past has shaped. This reinvention is more dramatic and possibly feels like a complete transformation inside out, but sometimes that is exactly what you need. Not a glow up, not a pivot, but an entire rebirth. Sometimes the past version of you was shaped by something very intense, trauma, survival, or neglect. And so choosing to become someone new isn't fake. It can be freeing. You're allowed to become someone that you can be proud of. And if Marilyn taught us anything, it's this: you don't have to stay the version of you that the world gave you. We covered several types of rebrands, and whichever one that resonated with you today, I hope that these real life examples can provide that extra layer of inspiration, because if they can do it, so can you. So whether you're doubling down on who you have always been like Lana, making a more refined shift like Sofia, finally showing your real self like Addison, or fully stepping into a completely new identity like Marilyn Monroe, the art of reinventing and rebranding yourself, it's never a one size fits all. There's no one way to do it. Reinvention, it's not always loud, it's not always pretty. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's soft, and other times it's strategic. But every version is valid and every version is powerful when it's true to you. What matters most is intention. Don't just reinvent yourself just to be more liked. Rebrand yourself to feel more aligned, so that finally you are becoming someone that you recognize, someone that you can respect, and someone that you genuinely love. This is your sign to choose your next era with purpose. If you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear which rebrand resonated with you in today's episode. Otherwise, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope to see you in the next one, and in the meantime, as always, stay hot. Bye!